You know what I thought would be cool? A BattleMech busting through a building Kool-Aid Man style, setting everything around it on fire before then slicing through the fusion core of an unsuspecting opponent with a rare Lost Tech mech scythe. So I'm gonna do that. Hey folks, because Sins Unearthed is going to be using a lot of BattleTech's more obscure and uncommon optional rules, alongside a hefty dose of my own custom content, I've realized an introduction is in order, so as to not overwhelm viewers on day one. In the near future, I'll be doing another video dedicated to the overhaul of MechWarrior Destiny's combat that I'm planning.
No. 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 No.
As well as releasing those homebrew changes in a public document then. Oh, and be warned, these explanations assume that you're familiar with BattleTech's core rules, or else they'll probably sound like gibberish. Optional rules. Let's start off with the rules that'll be familiar to some. BattleTech has an extremely robust set of extended rules that cover everything from running a mercenary company to how many G's of acceleration a Union dropship needs to break out of a planet's gravitational pull. Now, of course, I don't plan on using the latter example anytime soon, but I am using some optional rules and rule sets that'll be worth mentioning before the campaign begins. Tactical Operations. BattleTech Tactical Operations, now split into 2 books in the latest release, contains the overwhelming majority of the optional rules and advanced equipment that'll be allowed and used in Sins Unearthed. For going deeper into BattleTech rules after studying the Bible that is Total Warfare, TAC Ops is absolutely where I'd look first. While nearly the whole book is open for my players to ask to use a rule from, here are some of the major gameplay changes that we'll be using. Autocannon firing modes. You can now use rapid fire mode for treating regular autocannons like ultra autocannons at the risk of a jam or even a 1 cartridge ammo explosion, or multiple target mode for walking bullets or spreading LBX pellets across 2 adjacent targets. I felt like giving more utility and options to autocannons would help improve the AC's way too much for their damage meta. Backward movement expanded allows mechs and vehicles to move backwards up or down small elevation changes with a piloting skill roll. I actually don't have a ton of experience using this one, but I am excited to see what kinds of dynamic moves become possible. Careful stand. This is a rule I love and use all the time. A mech may spend its entire movement phase to stand at a -2 PSR bonus. This doesn't apply to mechs that have 2 MP or less remaining due to damage or heat, so it is still kind of situational, but can be very good. Firing from prone. If the TAC Ops improvement to this rule is enabled, a BattleMech firing from prone now only requires 1 arm to prop itself up. This gives more options to down but not out mechs. Floating through armor criticals to add full locational variety to the effects of the much feared through armor crit, instead of somehow always immediately ripping out your gyro in turn 1. Physical combat expanded adds so many new options and dimensions to BattleMech melee combat that I can't go into it all here. But I know my 2 more melee heavy players will be delighted to see the wide variety that TAC Ops adds. You could grapple, trip, intentionally walk off a ledge and try to people's elbow an enemy unit on the way down. And that's just the start. PPC Field Inhibitor Disengagement will give the player a choice of removing a PPC's minimum range at a risk of a 10 damage component explosion that becomes more likely the closer you move to your opponent. It gets stupidly likely at 1 hex, don't do that. Setting fires. The setting fires rule will be allowed with some GM discretion because fire and smoke can add more tactical choices. Skin of Teeth ejections to allow more chances for player characters and important NPCs to remain alive by being able to eject at a +2 difficulty in any situation that would have normally killed them outright, such as head destruction. Sprinting, which allows a mech to give up its firing phase in order to move at double their walk MP instead of the 1.5 times walk that running allows. Attacks against a sprinting unit are at a -1 bonus to hit, though, due to that unit moving in a more predictable way to reach its maximum speed. BattleTech Manual. BattleTech Manual is the most clear and concise collection of information about mech combat there is, including one of the greatest sections in any BattleTech rulebook ever made, called Common Misconceptions. The book also added a couple optional rules while fleshing out other existing ones. Here's the two big ones you'll be seeing. BattleTech Manual Enhanced Flamers. To make flamers somewhat more viable, we're using the version of flamers that both deal 2 heat and 2 damage, versus the default rule of having to choose which. Design quirks. This is quite the game changer. While first published in Strategic Operations, quirks have been added onto over the years and then recollected in BattleTech Manual. While mostly available for BattleMechs, quirks can also be seen on many vehicles as well. So what do they actually do? Add flavor. A quirk can add effects or bonuses or malices to weapons and movement, or add or remove mechanical limitations, such as the no torso twist or extended torso twist quirks, or even give more focused roles, such as anti-aircraft targeting. Most importantly, it creates more variety from unit to unit, because none of them, if I recall, have the exact same quirks. So, in theory, no longer is one 55-ton chassis capable of carrying the exact same loadout, or at least capabilities of a loadout, as another, due to how the quirks affect the performance. Unofficial and MegaMech. I can't say enough wonderful things about MegaMech and its accompanying suite of programs, MechHQ and MegaMech Lab. As a nearly 100% faithful Java-based simulator of BattleTech, with either online competitive play, co-op against bots, or an entire homebrew campaign system that simulates running a merc company, the MegaMech suite is one of the best ways to learn or plan anything in BattleTech. MechHQ is the backbone of my streamed campaigns, and MegaMech will be used to play one of my planned persistent side minigames in Sins Unearthed. For any Final Fantasy fans out there, it's heavily inspired by Triple Triad. All that being said, MegaMech added some homebrew unofficial options early in its development, as well as proposed but unadopted errata. I'll be borrowing some of these excellent but not tournament legal ideas to add both variety and balance. In addition to borrowing a cup of sugar from my neighbor MegaMech, I'm also grabbing one other major idea from a forum post, explained in a minute. Front-loaded initiative. This is a suggested balance change from the MegaMech team that I swear by. No longer does losing initiative, which is already pretty devastating, end with multiple units getting the last laugh movement against you. Front-loaded initiative is hard for me to explain mathematically because that's not my area of expertise, but it more or less reverses the aforementioned bias of the initiative winner getting to pounce on their opponent with multiple units at the end of the movement phase, and instead makes it so that there will only be one unit left to move for the initiative winner to have their last laugh with. Unjam Ultra Autocannons. Hoo boy. So, I've been going back and forth on this one for quite a while. I still don't know for sure, but this rule from MegaMech would let a player using an Ultra Autocannon that's jammed take a game round to attempt to unjam it, as if it were a rotary autocannon or a tank turret. While the fluff is quite clear that a jammed Ultra Autocannon involves a red-hot shell becoming fused to the barrel and ruining it for the time being, I'm playing with the idea of a custom quirk that allows some kind of ramrod to forcefully clear the barrel, but all shots from then on are at a +1 extra difficulty, cumulative with further jams, and retaining those added difficulties until a technician can restore it. I think this will require further discussion with the players before I know which way I'm ultimately going, but that's my idea for now. The big one. Handheld weapons and legendary weapons. You might have noticed every other rule was in alphabetical order, but this one is so interesting and niche that I wanted to save it for last. Handheld weapons is a little-known set of rules from TAC Ops that lacks construction rules by default and only describes how to use existing handheld weapons. A BattleTech forum post by SCC called Unified Handheld Weapon Rules reverse engineers the existing handhelds to provide construction rules and a few extra features. On top of that, I'm completely throwing balance out the window for a higher tier of handheld weapons that I'm currently calling legendary weapons. Many legendary weapons are hybrid melee and ranged masterpieces that often ignore the rule that using handheld weapons for melee always acts like a club attack. A precious few even ignore the maximum 6 crit slots allowed in normal handheld weapons. It's my hope that these will add a unique flavor for those who choose to use them, or maybe nice salvage to collect or sell in the case that they don't. Either way, it'll be fun to try out. Final thoughts. Congratulations to those who stuck around this long. I know I'm bringing a lot to the table at once, but it would have been so much worse to blindside players and viewers with all of this on game day. If anybody's got questions or comments, just let me know down below. It's going to be a lot of experimentation figuring out what does and doesn't add to the fun for my players, but I figure it's better to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks versus trying nothing new at all. So thanks everybody for your patience, and I'll see you all in February for the debut.